Welcome to Synthetic Nashville, a living laboratory for optimizing community resilience supports in a cold snap event. Some communities are more vulnerable during an outage and have higher resilience needs than others. The nature of human vulnerability can vary, and careful planning is required to support those in need. Everyone has unique needs. To account for that, we modeled economic, health, and mobility vulnerabilities based on disability, age, medical conditions, household income, and more. To understand where these individuals live, we generated heat maps to reveal where higher densities of marginalized people are likely to be located based on demographic and psychographic data. Combining these layers of data helped identify 5 hotspots of need across Nashville. For each of these regions, we calculated the ratio between available support and concurrent need. This provided a resilience index where a lower score indicates poorer resilience prospects. Antioch has both high need and low resilience, so we chose to take a closer look at that region. Roughly 30,000 people around Antioch have mobility, health, or economic challenges and are vulnerable to prolonged power outages. Let's look closer at some of these people. First, we meet Ray, an elderly man who lives alone, has mobility and health challenges, and needs medical support. Next, we meet the Rice family. This is a low-income, single-parent household with 3 children. They have high basic needs like food, water, and blankets. These cases illustrate how individual needs can vary drastically within the same region. Looking at Antioch, there are 4 zones of amplified need with varying proportions of vulnerable people. Their needs inform the nature of support required here. To understand what supports are available in these 4 zones, we plotted churches, schools, and fire stations on the map. Overlaying human need with existing supports showed a mismatch and possible inequity in resilient support. Churches, schools, and fire stations are only a few types of facilities that can serve as resilience centers, but it is important that facility locations are selected according to where vulnerable people live and that the resource allocation and planning within those support facilities reflect the needs of the community. In addition to the location of a facility, it is also important to align the resources available with the nature and proportion of unique human needs. This helps further optimize appropriate resilience support. Synthetic Nashville can quantify and locate human need to optimize and inform community resilience planning and mitigate human impacts during extended outages. Thank you for considering Synthetic Nashville, a living laboratory for resilience planners and their stakeholders to ensure better outcomes for all during chronic and acute weather events. Welcome to Synthetic Nashville, a living laboratory where we can explore scenarios of cold snap power demand, from typical winter conditions to high-risk extreme cold events. Let's start with a winter day. In Synthetic Nashville, the results here show typical winter hourly demand data from Tennessee Valley Authority. When we turn down the temperature to what is considered extreme cold, at minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, synthetic load curves reveal record-breaking electricity demand. Extreme cold makes a significant difference. This synthetic cold snap led to a 1.16 gigawatt demand for a total of 391,320 residences, and their 755,140 residents in Nashville, which is 1.5 times higher than the typical winter demand. The main components of this demand arise from electrified heating. Heating energy has been vastly electrified in Nashville. Data includes detailed demand from heat pumps, built-in electric units, and portable heaters. These load components are generated from modeled availability of heating equipment in each residence, using American Housing Survey data and unique usage patterns based on home characteristics and outside temperature. When it gets colder, for example, a secondary source of heating is adding 17% demand to the primary heating load demand. Among all heating equipment, heat pumps are the most significant portion of the demand, while considerably more efficient than baseboard heaters. Here is a snapshot of the total heating demand from equipment used as the primary source of heating. 30% of households have a secondary source of heating and use it as supplementary heating when it is really cold. Primary and secondary heating demand is layered into total heating electricity demand. total demand highlights where and who is consuming more electricity. We found an important correlation between the low-income population, older single-family homes, and high demand in Southeast Nashville. Central Nashville has the highest total demand due to higher population and housing density. This area could be a priority for grid modernization, restoration, and locating distributed energy resources. Our demand data can be segmented by residences. Our zoom in on this older single-family residence built in 1972 with a poor building envelope shows an electric baseboard heater as a primary and a portable heater as a secondary heating source, with a 15.07 kilowatt demand in 1 hour during a cold snap. Another example shows a new condominium building of the same size, highly insulated with a cold weather heat pump and no supplementary source of heating, that uses 3.4 times less energy than the older building. Synthetic Nashville can quantify and locate different components of demand to inform planning for distributed energy resources. Welcome to Synthetic Nashville, a living laboratory for the exploration of a cold snap power outage and community resilience. Cold snap power outages affect different people differently. What is the impact of an outage on economically disadvantaged populations? We created a group of interconnected social risk indices to measure impact and the need during the course of an outage, including economically disadvantaged people. Synthetic Nashville uses publicly available data from federal, state, and municipal sources and is generated through advanced techniques that eliminate the need for difficult-to-obtain and personally identifiable data. Synthetic Nashville includes 750,000 individuals. Each synthetic person has a number of indices based on detailed demographics and socioeconomic status. Synthetic Nashville also includes 400,000 residences, 16,000 businesses, and grid assets including transformers, lines, and substations. Synthetic modeling enables us to dial forward and assess how the outage impacts these individuals. The results here show a moment 22 hours into a cold snap outage with minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. At this point in time, hunger affects some. Thirst is more acute, particularly for the elderly and those with specific medical conditions. Many are cold, especially those in poorly insulated homes. Together, hunger, thirst, and cold layer into the Basic Needs Index. The Basic Needs Index highlights who is most immediately in need, the hungry, thirsty, and cold, and maps the geography of need. In addition, we located people with economic disadvantages and medical needs that rely on electrical power. Economic details include people who have relied on food stamps, had an interruption in employment recently, and those who struggle to pay their rent or mortgage. Layering economics and medical dependencies into the Basic Needs Index, it becomes the Combined Risk Index and provides a more comprehensive and weighted measure to indicate people who are most vulnerable overall. Application of the Combined Risk Index at the city scale shows us where people have the highest need per person on average. Also visible are areas where we have clusters of individuals who have more urgent and acute needs, and we can see where the most sum total need is required. The deep well of data can be segmented by geography and demographics, like EPA and environmental justice areas as shown, as well as mapped to grid circuit and service areas. Data shows effects over time and such correlations as income and impacts. The data includes families, individuals, and residences. Synthetic individuals and families have realistic and descriptive attributes and live in residences across the city. We can examine vulnerability in detail. Our zoom in on this low-income family with a high combined risk index finds a head of household unable to work due to a disability. The family relies on food stamps, which means less food on hand, and more of an impact from food spoilage with any extended loss of refrigeration. Another example includes this second household that has a high Basic Needs Index. This single-parent family lives in an older, poorly insulated home. Without access to a generator or an alternative heat source, the 3 young occupants are disproportionately impacted by cold. Synthetic Nashville can quantify social impacts of grid priorities, for distributed energy resources and modernization, as well as outage mitigation and management, like intermittency and restoration. Thank you for considering Synthetic Nashville, a living laboratory for responders and power utilities to ensure better outcomes for all during chronic and acute weather events.